Welcome everyone. My name is Rafemia. So first of all, we'll be starting off with task forces. I feel that many of us are unfamiliar with the term, so I'm going to do my best to tell everything that we know that you need to know about it and what it is and how we can incorporate this in our NMO as well. So we'll just go along the bylaws, which just generally shows how it should be formed, how the activities will be, and its dissolution. But the main thing is what it is. A task force, I'll just read along and you can see on the slide as well. A task force is a group of people working together in a specific task for a limited period of time. So basically there has to be a problem statement that you think is existing in your NMO, IFMS Abagsan, and there has to be proposed motion to form a task force. So a motion to form a task force should include its specific objectives, the proposed composition of the task force, and a permanently timeline. So what they're going to do, how it's going to be formed. There should be a supervisor, someone handling the internals and externals, and what activities the task force is actually going to do. Now, a task force is going to be formed at the NGA, through the NGA or the EB or standing committees, and you guys, the LC presidents. So the call has to be, you have to make a proposal for it before the NGA to present it to the EB. And the EB will be responsible for sending the call out on WhatsApp and Facebook to advertise it within a week after the NGA. So a call will be made for the selection criteria, and the task force will be made of, as it says on 20.5, a task force is composed of the volunteers wanting to participate in the solution of the problem at hand. So just overall, I can give an example of one of the task force calls that just came from the current GA, which is on the climate change. So there is a problem statement. The GA happened, and the task force calls were opened, which are open right now as we speak, and they'll have a selection criteria for it. Farhad, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so the executive board will be responsible for the selection and announcement of the task force members within a month of the call sent. So 1 week to open the calls after the NGA, and then another month for the selection. In case there's a lack of applications, it can be extended for another month after that. Now, the selection criteria is mainly, it should be as inclusive for everyone as we can. And if it's a topic of national importance, so normally it would include, say, people from different regions and different LCs, as well as maybe you could include an expert on it or a supervisor for one of the posts. And generally you might have around 5 persons in it. And the task force is only active once all of the selected members have been there. So moving on to what activities we have in this, how the activities need to be conducted according to the set bylaws. The participants must appoint a coordinator themselves, and the coordinator is responsible for all the internal and external communication, and as well as updating all the activities that they do. Now, the task force itself has the strength, or they can do whatever they feel to develop products and prepare the proposals against the specific issue. And they have to report the activities at the NGAs. So at the next NGA, and a task force can actually stay up for up to 2 years. So it could last for 2 NGAs. Now, the report needs to have at least the list of participants, its methodology, and the activities within the task force, the discussion results, the difficulty faced, and the recommendations. Now, this also gives a little more overview into what actually a task force is going to do. The main thing is that you're going to have a problem statement. You're going to, the task force is going to take activities to look into that problem. They'll see what difficulties were faced, and they will have recommendations during the next NGA or GA, right? Farhad, can we go to the next slide? Right. So, and next comes to its dissolution. So either when the task is completed, or if no solution is found, and the dissolution will be done in accordance to paragraph 3.31. The duration of the task force, as I said, cannot be more than 2 years unless it's extended by the NGA. And a task force must present a final report stating all of its activities and results at the end. So yeah, actually, to be honest, we have not had any task force proposal in IFMS Pakistan as of yet. And that's why it's important to know that it actually exists. And this is something that we need to put out for any problems we feel in our NMO that seemingly haven't been solved over the years. There needs to be a task force developed on any such topic. And yeah, so Farhad, if there's anything else you want to add that I might have missed out, please feel free.
I think, Rafe, you have explained everything on the task force regarding bylaws. So for those who do not know anything about the bylaws, or it gets very technical, I will explain this in a layman term. So a task force is basically something that the presidents or the EB or a standing committee can make to solve an issue. It could be any issues. I will give an explanation on international level. You can implement that on national level. Like if internationally they felt that there's a lot of gender bias in the leadership positions. So what they did was they opened a task force on gender representation. I am part of it. Now there's only 5 members in it. And what we do is we're figuring out what speaking rights do people have all over the GA, kitne log, kis gender ke kitna bol rahe hain, what sort of people are there, how many of them are male, how many of them are female, what are the leaders from all over the different NMOs, what genders do they belong to. So we'll figure out that, yeah, there's an actual issue, and then we figure out that, yeah, kin countries ki policies nahi hai, how to make it better. The reason why task force are important is because a lot of the work, a lot of the issues we face in the organization is they cannot be solved by the EB, or because EB has their own limitations to their work. A task force in an autonomous body, they can do whatever they want, they can decide whatever they want, and all they do is present their report on the next National General Assembly. And what that happens is you, the presidents or the voters will decide, okay, these are the recommendations they give. Do we accept it? Once they've accepted it, these will be put into effect. If they give you any changes in the bylaws, if they give you any changes in policies or any changes in the structure, then they could be made. The reason why task force can be made are because this would be a very non-biased approach, and this would help this would help. I'll get to you in a while, Zara. So this would basically help make changes. A small working group is very different. A small working group basically works under a standing committee or under a leader, and they are directly under the effect of a national cabinet person that's appointed. A task force is completely autonomous. They do not report to the EB. They do not report to the supervising council. They only report to the NGA. So you get to see why it makes things very transparent. So if you want to affect and change, if you feel, okay, maybe there's uh, a difference in different regions, that this region is not getting represented a lot, so you can maybe open a task force on regional representation, and then the task force will come up with the issues they've faced, everything they've worked over a year. They present their report, and you can then decide what to do with the report. So this is why task forces are important. Up next, we'll be talking about policy documents, and Adil and Hamayal will take over on that. They're also part of the VPCB national team. So Adil and
Farhad, can I speak now? Farhad?
yeah, you may just like, let me just reply to Rabia here. Rabia,
Okay.
a task force can make changes, can recommend changes on policies. They can recommend changes within the association or any issue that they are tasked with. For example, if a task force's job is given that, okay, maybe they want to work on sustainability of the NMO, so they will work over any issues they feel are hindering the sustainability of the NMO, and then they report that. Is that clear? Okay, so Adil, you can take over.
Thank you so much, Farhad. Everyone able to listen to me? Hello? Okay, I assume that yes. Okay, hi everyone. This is Adil Riaz from FMU LC. I am General Assistant to VPCB IFMSA Pakistan, and joining me today will be Himal Sana. She is from BMC LC. She will also explain how the policy works at international and national level. So what I will do, I am going to give you a brief introduction and then going to hand over to Himal Sana. So most of you know IFMSA Pakistan doesn't have much stance on international level as we speak in the policy term, because IFMSA Pakistan members doesn't know how to propose a policy, what is policy, how to do advocacy and stuff like that. So what international IFMSA defines policy is, they're defined as a policy document represent IFMSA's belief regarding a particular issue, and that issues are bounded by the IFMSA's constitutional and bylaws that are mentioned on IFMSA international website. So what I am going to do is, now I will hand over to Himal Sana. She'll explain to you how international policy adaptation works, and later on I will explain to you how national policy adaptation works. Over to you, Himal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you, Adil, for explaining it all so very well. So I'm Hamal Sana from BMCLC. I'm also a General Assistant to VPCB IFMSA Pakistan and a policy enthusiast, and love to advocate for things that matter and also to put forward the stance of IFMSA Pakistan. So let's talk about policies. What exactly are policies? Policies are, as you might say, the core curricular standards or guidelines that IFMSA proposes at each of their annual meetings, which happen in March and in August. So what you can see here is that represents IFMSA's beliefs regarding a particular issue, and it is composed of two elements, the policy statement and the policy paper. And the way that it works is everything, all the objectives and the missions are bound by the constitution and bylaws of IFMSA internationally. Okay, so Farhad, would you please change the slide? Okay, so talking about policies, we have two types of policies. The one is international policies, and the second is national policies. For both of them, for both of the policies to be accepted, you would have to propose them at the national or international general assemblies, which happen twice a year for General Assembly, and for Pakistan, it happens once a year, the NGAs. And for a policy document to be adopted, it is necessary that 2/3 of the population or the students gathered in the plenary should support the policy. And am I not audible to everyone? I think I saw a message here. Someone, I think Fiza. Am I audible to everyone? Please kindly reply to this.
Fiza, can you leave the room and enter it again? Maybe that's an issue.
Okay, great.
Hamal, continue.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so for a policy to be adopted, it is necessary that almost 2/3 of the plenary gathered at the General Assembly support the policy and give their consensus over it. Fred, would you please change the slide? Okay, so the way the policy paper is structured, As I mentioned earlier, it consists of two parts, the policy statement and the position paper. Policy statement is a very short and concise document which highlights the stance of IFMSA for a specific topic. So it depends on the subject matter that you are advocating for. If you're advocating for universal health coverage or you're advocating for cultural competence, it changes from policy to policy. And it is really concise and to the point. The maximum length, as you can see here, it's just 2 pages and includes 3 parts: introduction, IFMSA position, and call to action. Introduction is just a brief layover of what the subject matter is. IFMSA position, it shows what IFMSA stance is on the certain subject matter. And call to action, you might say, is the most important part of a policy paper. Call to action also changes from policy to policy. What it basically does is that it calls to action the major stakeholders and decision-making bodies of the certain subject matter. So if I were to give an example, of a policy for vaccination, so you would see we're calling to action the organizations and institutions which advocate for them or provide rights for them. And among the top of my head, I would call WHO, Navi Alliance, and institutions, medical universities, and One Health organizations. So there, all of the organizations which play a major role, you call to action all of them and give them the stance of IFMSA about them and give them recommendations on what you want to see them doing in the future. And then comes a position paper. Position paper is mostly the way you would explain your policy statement. The way the policy statement is explained is that you give a detailed document supporting everything that you have said in policy statement. So if I were to call to action the WHO about certain something, you have to give reasonings about it. And the way you can do it is to give references and do literature research and find resources which support your argument and your recommendations which you have given in your policy statement. What it says here is that this is the part of a policy which includes external resources, bibliographies, and references. Generally, a policy can be created by any member of the Federation, but it must be officially submitted by 2 NMOs from different regions or the team of officials. So here comes a technicality. For every NMO or an individual from an NMO who is enthusiastic about a policy. So the way it works, the channel through which it works is that there must be 2 NMOs proposing a policy from different regions. So if the NMO from IFMSA Pakistan is proposing a policy, so it has to have another NMO, not from Asia Pacific, but from Africa or maybe Americas or Europe, supporting that policy. So it comes from 2 NMOs. And in other instance, we have the team of officials. The team of officials include the executive board and the liaison officers, which are particular to each standing committee. So you would have one of these 2 things to help you propose a policy and then present it, and the whole process is also elaborated very well in the Article 15 of IFMSA Constitution and Bylaws, which you can check out after this webinar. Farhad, would you please change the slide? Okay, so this is another element of policy. So once you have made your policy, the first draft of the policy, along with your small working group, your colleagues, or members from different NMOs, or even with the team of officials, then you have to send that policy to a team of experts of that subject matter to review it and give you recommendations so that it can then be forwarded later on for other reviews. So a policy commission is composed of 3 people mainly. One from the team of officials. The team of officials, mostly it consists of the liaison officer. So if you are proposing a policy for medical education, you will have the LME, liaison officer for medical education. If you have for human rights, then you will have the liaison officer for human rights. So it is different from policy to policy. And then 2 representatives of the NMOs. It could be anyone, it could be from the same NMOs who propose the policies, or it could be from any other NMO which were not included in the policy. So it is a very transparent process and gives you a lot of opportunities to change it and make it as available to everyone as is possible. Farhad, would you please change the slide? Okay, so stages of how to propose a policy. So the first thing is it's a draft policy document. The whole process is very nicely elaborated in Article 16. It shows you all the specifications and the word limit and page limits that you have to consider while writing your policies. Then the second is send a call for policy commission before like 10th of January. So what happens is that mostly the way international policies are done, that before the 31st of December, or you could say 31st of June or 31st of May, they make the first draft and then they send out a call for policy commission. The policy commissions are formed and then they give their reviews, after which they send the policy document to the NMO server. What is the NMO server? Is that they make a portal for all the NMOs to come together where they upload all the policies. And then IFMSA Pakistan will review that policy and give their recommendations. IFMSA Australia will give their recommendations. So it's a very global movement and also includes a lot of people with different ideas and perspectives. In the stage 3, share the draft policy document and policy commission's composition to the NMO server. Step 4 is submission deadline. Submission deadline mostly for the March meeting is 1st of February and 1st of July for August meeting. So it is necessary for you to amend and also input all the reviews that you got from the policy commission and NMO servers, and then submit your policy document to the General Secretariat's account. Okay. Farhad, would you please change the slide? Okay, so this is the last bit. What you all need to do is, if any of you are interested about writing a policy for IFMSA and want to contribute to it, what you have to do is to reach out to a liaison officer who is related to your subject matter. If it's about medical education, reach to LME. If it is about public health, reach to the liaison officer concerned with that. And then they will connect you to the people who are already working about your policy document, or connect you with people who want to work with you, and they will help you into making your small working groups and give you opportunities to explore your potential and also know about perspectives from other NMOs. And right after this, I want to share with you an example of an international policy document. Farhad, would you please share the PDF file for vaccination policy? Then we can move on to the national policy. Okay, so this is a very fun example of a policy statement. This was proposed in March meeting 2019 by the team of officials. It was about vaccination. So you can see the first part for policy statement. It has an introduction, which is really brief. Then IFMS's position about where it stands about vaccination. Mostly it involves the stance which has been already elaborated in the IFMSA objectives and goals. Then you can see call to action, the one I mentioned, which is really important. You can see we call to action the governments and ministries of health, because they're eventually the ones who contribute to the vaccinations. Then moving on, would you please move down the page a little, Farhad? Then the next person we called was WHO and other relevant organizations. Then there were universities and other educational professional bodies. So this is also an important element which was relevant to vaccination, so we included that as well. Then you can see healthcare NGOs and professional associations. And then in the end, we call to action the IFMSA members and NMOs, which you can see at the really bottom of this page, and One Health partners as well. So this was how you make the policy statement. And then you move to position paper. Here you just give a background information about what is vaccination, and then moving on to what are the important aspects of vaccination that you want to touch. So global and regional coverage, and then we talk about vaccination hesitancy and consigned vaccines and vaccination education, One Health partners. So this policy document will be shared with you after this webinar, so you can all go through it and know how it really works. And now we will move to the method of how to propose a national policy for FMSA Pakistan. And taking over here will be Adil. Adil, would you please come in? Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Amal, for your explanation and your work. Now I will explain to you guys how national policy works in IFMSA Pakistan. First question is, am I audible? Please comment in the comment section so I can proceed further. Yeah, okay. I'll take that as yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is me, Adil Riaz again. So I will explain to you how national policy works. So you all know, as our NMO IFMSA Pakistan is in growing phase, it hasn't been grown like the other NMOs like MSI India or maybe some other NMOs in European region. So we are working on IFMSA bylaws. First, I will explain to you what is national IFMSA policy, then how it works, and then there are certain flaws in IFMSA bylaws, which I will be explaining to the presidents of LCs because president of LCs are present here. So I would recommend you guys to take a listen to that and understand that. And if you have any questions about that, ask them in the end Q&A session. Okay, I will start now. So according to IFMSA bylaws, article number 18, what they define policy is. As Himal explained really beautifully, what policy is. Basically, policy is something you see, something is the problem you see in the society, and you want to address that, and you want to advocate for that. And for advocacy, you need a certain paper in your hand, because when you will go to the authority or somebody higher, they will ask you, what is your stance, what you want to ask, what you want to say. So the policy is a really beautiful piece of paper on which you will write what you want to do and stuff like that. So it defines as IFMSA Pakistan policy. It describes its position reflecting a global health issue that the Federation wants to take a stance on in line with the IFMSA Pakistan vision and missions bounded by constitutions and bylaws. Farhad, next slide, please. Okay, as explained, the structure of the policy paper. So the national policy structure is also the same. Consists of policy statement and policy paper. What is policy statement? Policy statement is basically a short and concise document in which you will explain what is your position. You will write introduction on certain topic. Like what you are going to do is you are going to write 5 to 6, 7 lines of the introduction. Then you will write the call to action, and you will write the IFMSA position. So what is IFMSA position? What is the difference between IFMSA position and call to action? IFMSA position is like, for example, you want to say, because policy document will be adopted by the plenary of IFMSA Pakistan. So you will be writing as IFMSA Pakistan. So what you will do is you will say IFMSA believes that this is such a bad issue and we have to work on that. Something like that will go into the IFMSA position. Now, call to action. You are calling the different organizations, you are calling different institutions, you are calling medical students, you are calling academic professionals to take action on that particular issue. You are going to write the policy on. So this is the policy statement. There is a one technicality in that issue is the policy statement should be of 2 pages, not more than that. It should be, you have to complete your introduction, IFMSA position, and call to action in 2 pages. Otherwise, your policy will be disqualified from and even into the plenary. So moving on to the position paper. What is position paper? As we were told about how in the international policy position consists of background discussion and references to. So Position paper is something in which you take external references, like what the word says, what is the research on that topic, what is the stance of other federations, what is the stance of other academic organizations on that topic. So I have highlighted the line in the end of that on the slide, which states that a position paper must cite outside sources and include a bibliography. So that's the thing, you will relate your topic to the other resources and you will compare them and you will deduce a result from that section, like what they are saying and what you have a point of view and what they are saying, and you will present something new. It's more like writing a discussion of a research paper in which you have the result section and now you have to compare the other things in order to get the fine result of that thing. So IFMSA national policy is also consist of policy statement and position paper. Moreover, there is no limitation of the length of position paper. It can be of 4 pages, 5 pages, but keeping the concision in mind is the better thing to do. Next slide, please. Okay, now coming to the policy commission. For example, you have to write a policy. One thing I forgot to mention is anyone or everyone in this meeting or outside meeting, if that person is a member of federation or even a member of coordinator college or a permanent local council or whatever he is, he or she can write the policy. So what that person need to do is he need to choose the policy commission. So before starting to that, policy commission consists of 3 people as in international, 2 representatives from local council and 1 representative of team of official. Why there is a member of team official? Because to supervise them, to work them in line with the IFMSA bylaws and constitution, and to choose the right word for the policy, they need team of officials. Next slide. Okay, what are the stage of adoption? As we have listened to and read the slides that in international policy adoption stages, they have a very defined and clear timeline of like, you have to write a policy, first deadline is 10 January of submitting the rough draft, and you have to submit to the General Secretariat the policy by 20th February in case of March meeting, and so forth as for the August meeting too. But as we know, IFMSA Pakistan doesn't give its clear date for the National General Assembly. It can happen anytime in this in the year. So we don't have any clear timeline over that. But what you need to do is, if you want to write a policy, contact to the IFMSA EB. Most preferably contact to VPE because it's the external work. So contact to VPE. VPE will hand over to you the stuff of the policy. So you have to create a rough policy, but it should be in line with the IFMSA Pakistan bylaws, which are clearly stated in Article 18. If you don't have access to IFMSA bylaws, we will be providing you with the whole document of that thing. So you have created a policy document. Now what to do? You have a draft policy. Sorry?
Hey guys, make sure your mics are on mute.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll continue from that. You have written a rough policy document. So policy document is eventually going to be, representing the stance of federation. In these cases, it will be representing the stance of IFMSA Pakistan, because it's an advocacy material. It should be transparent as much as possible. So what you have to do is, you have to send that to the whole local council's mailing list. I'm not sure if that is the case in IFMSA Pakistan. So what you need to do is you will send that to VPE, and VPE will be responsible to collecting the response of the local council members and presidents or medical students, because we need suggestions from them. The suggestions should be humble, and you need to use the word like, I would suggest that, I would recommend that. Don't be too harsh on that, giving the comments and like that. Please be respectful, because they have put a lot of energy into that, doing that work. And coming to the third point, 18.6 article of IFMSA bylaw states that a motion to adopt the policy statement and position paper must be submitted the day before the relevant plenary and submitted by 2 local councils. Now, in the international, you have to submit that at least 10 to 15 days before the coming meeting, whether it's August or March. But in IFMSA Pakistan, you can submit it the day before too, to the general secretary. They have you have to submit that policy document on a template provided by the a template provided by the general secretary. In that, if you are not if you are not submitting that policy document on that if you are not submitting that the policy document on that thing, your policy will not going to be adopted. So adoption obviously requires 2/3 majority of the voting panel. So and you have to present that policy too on the first day of NGA. So the whole timeline is not that much clear. So we have made the specific points over that. So I'm sure you will be able to understand a bit of that. Not much. I'm not assuming that you will understand the 100% procedure of IFMSA Pakistan policy process, but we have tried to make that transparent as soon as possible, as much as possible. Farhad, next slide, please. Okay, what about expiry and revision? So IFMSA policy, whether it's international or national, it stands for 3 years until or unless it is again presented in the plenary and voted by the whole voters. And again, you need to amend into that policy or present again, and you have to again gain the 2/3 majority in order to get adopted that policy again over the period of 3 years. Again, next slide, please. Okay, as I was telling you previously that IFMSA Pakistan is in growing phase. So what we did is there are 3 bylaws that need to be amended in IFMSA Pakistan's policy statement. As 18.1 of the article IFMSA Pakistan, which states that that it is actually the definition of the policy. IFMSA Pakistan states that the policy is something related to the global health issues, whereas international IFMSA policy states that it is a particular issue on which a federation wants to take a stance. For example, I will give you an example here that I wrote a policy with Himal for this March meeting that was cultured competence in healthcare. That was not a global health issue. It was more related to medical education or the training of the doctors. So we need to amend that law. We need to correct that words. We cannot use the global health issues. It should be the particular issue as written in the IFMSA international bylaws. And the second point is 18.C, which is the policy commission members. As you might have noticed the difference, IFMSA International needs the policy commission from 2 representatives from 2 NMOs from 2 different regions and 1 EB member. So preferably it is a liaison officer of the respective standing committee. So why the 2 members from different regions? Because IFMSA is all about promoting inclusive people, to promote the people from different backgrounds and cultures. and they want to give the policy a whole global stance, because if there is some issue in Asia Pacific and it's not an issue in the European region, it cannot be the policy of IFM as a whole. It would be the policy of Asia Pacific. So in that thing, there is a technicality problem in IFM as a Pakistan bylaws. It does not state from which two LCs the policy commission member should be. Like for example, I will show you a policy of IFM as a Pakistan. So I didn't know about that policy because two people from Punjab took the initiative and they wrote the policy and they took to the NGA. So what I am proposing right now is we need to write that into the IFMSA Pakistan bylaws. Is we need IFMSA policy member at least two people from two different regions of IFMSA. For example, if I am here and Himal is from Balochistan, so we need two people from different regions or two different provinces, so that we should include that provinces also. Okay, coming to the third point is timeline of submission process of policy. As I explained, it's a bit of a messy one. We need to get onto that thing. And now Farhad will show you the national policy paper which got adopted last year. It was on tobacco. Farhad, if you can do that, please.
Manakib bhai, you can explain the stuff you wanted to explain on task force now. You can unmute your mic and talk about it till we get this on. Adil, can you give some time to Manakib bhai?
Yeah, sure.
Hi everyone. Um, okay,
Manakib bhai, a little louder.
can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hmm. Okay, I think I don't remember now what I wanted to explain regarding task forces. Yeah, one thing, yeah. So you guys mentioned that task force can do anything on a said topic, which is actually not true. Um, Task force has quite a number of limitations. A task force has a very specific set of tasks which are like detailed out in the motion that is for adoption of task force. The motion cannot be adopted actually without those specific set of tasks that the task force needs to do. They can amend those tasks according to their own requirement, but they need to inform the NMOs internationally that these are some things that we have made changes with to adjust our schedule. The other thing is that they can only sort of uh, look at everything, discuss with each other, discuss with NMOs, but they cannot take action uh, in any way. What they can do is they can put on suggestions, but if those suggestions include bylaw changes, then yes, they can propose a bylaw change. It's not like that they will propose a set of suggestions, and if those suggestions are reported, whatever in those suggestions needs to be done. No, that is not how it usually goes around. If those suggestions include bylaw changes, there needs to be separate set of motions to adopt those bylaws as well. If they don't put forward bylaw changes, then nothing out of their suggestions is going to be um, making any impact unless they then go ahead and mandate the EB to do work on it. That was regarding task force. For task force versus small working group, I had one very little opinion. Uh, the small working groups we have in Pakistan are actually called national working groups, and usually they are formed by one person, which then gets then EB gets involved in it, and then they formalize the whole thing into something as of national working group. Internationally, a bunch of NMOs can come together and make a small working group. It does not need to be adopted anywhere. It does not need to be announced anywhere. They can keep it limited. They can keep it open and public. It's totally in those a group of NMOs or a group of NMOs and some of EB officials. Like it's sort of an informal thing, small working group. And some small working groups have had quite a lot of impact in IFMSA in general. One of those was a small working group. Yes, Daniel, we call national working groups. In Pakistan, we call small working groups as national working groups. One slight change from the international working group is that our our national working group needs to be involved with the EB. But internationally, they are quite independent and they can do whatever they want. But again, anything that has an impact in IFMSA needs to go through plenary. Small working groups in general cannot uh, propose bylaws or propose motions in the plenary. They always have to go through uh, the NMOs. That's the thing, and they are quite independent. Like the NMOs can make small working groups, uh, whatever. Yeah, Ali Shamsher, the task force is formulated on the General Assembly. It is mandated and specified by all the NMOs to perform a specific task within a specific deadline. That task can be anything, whatever the NMOs want, but it needs to be specific. For example, I worked in a task force for removing barriers of participation, and they had given us almost 5 to 10 tasks to work with. One was to evaluate visa issues, the other was to evaluate regional discrepancy, another was to evaluate NMO development in terms of barriers to participation. So we had to work on everything, but we had only a year to work on it. Uh, and the call of the task, the motion is gets adopted in the General Assembly, and we are tasked by the General Assembly to work on these specific issues. While for small working group, it does not need to be specific in any way. It does not get made by a vote. It does not get to be part of any official process. Say, for example, Pakistan, UK, and Lebanon, they feel like they need to work together on 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 say gender equality. So they form together these three NMOs. They form a small working group, and they end up being they contribute their members to that group, and those members individually work for in general gender equality in IFMSA, and they can ask for NMOs to support them while they present some of their findings. While, for example, the difference would be how the task force would be different would be that Pakistan, Lebanon, and UK think that IFMSA needs to work on gender equality, so they propose a task force to improve gender equality uh, uh, in IFMSA, and then that task force get gets the mandate after it is voted upon. So that's the difference is the vote. The whole General Assembly mandates the task force. SWGs can be any number of NMOs working together. I hope that answers your question. What is criterion of selection in a task force and who has the authority to form? Okay, so again, the task force is actually formed by the uh, yes, exactly, Navira. Animals cannot form the task force without a vote in the GA, even in IFMSA Pakistan. I think IFMSA Pakistan does give authority to EB to form a task force. I'm not sure,
It does. It does.
but I think
It does.
yeah. So IFMSA Pakistan does give authority to EB to form a task force. Other than that, NMOs cannot form their task force. In case of Pakistan, LCs cannot form the task force without an NGA vote. Uh, for criteria of selection is actually defined by the NMOs who are proposing the task force. And if that task force gets to be adopted, then that criteria is also part of that motion, which is adopted for the task force. So everything is defined by the NMOs who are proposing the task force. The only thing is that if it does not get the vote in General Assembly, it does not get implemented. The task force does not start. But everything is defined by the two NMOs or one EB member who is proposing the task force. Yeah, you can from on their own until and okay. So I have already answered. Another thing regarding the policy statements that I wanted to add. I hope I'm not taking a lot of time. Um, Adil just mentioned that this thing that LCs needs to be from two different regions and things like that. While I do understand the reason of it, and uh, by the way, I agree with the amendment that you mentioned regarding it does not need to say global health problem or anything like that, and it needs to be more specific, yes, and more general. Uh, okay, so Ali Shamsher, I'm gonna answer what you just asked. Uh, in Pakistan, I don't think so, at least for now. We have had an informal regionalization within our EB and National Cabinet, as far as I am aware of, but we haven't yet, I think these guys, the current EB even haven't yet formalized that regionalization of LCs in IFMSA Pakistan. We sort of have like informal internal division. I think so. Like we divide Lahore, then Upper Punjab, then Southern Punjab, and then uh, Karachi and Sindh. I think Balochistan and then KPK. We sort of do have an internal division of LCs, but we haven't had it formalized in the bylaws. So you cannot mention something in the bylaws that uh, is yet to be formalized. So if we haven't defined regions of Pakistan according to IFMSA Pakistan, um, yeah, so not compulsory. Yes, two LCs from Lahore can make a policy for now because we don't have a formal regionalization of IFMSA Pakistan's LCs. Uh, and regarding, yep, and regarding, I think, regarding the policy commission, usually what it is like, m- it it needs to be the two, like it's usually sort of pre-understood that the people in the policy commission will be from the two LCs are actually proposing the policy statement, but it is not necessary. Even in the international um policy commission as well. Okay. So Zara, the national working group does not need to be approved by our National General Assembly. LCs, one or two or more, can come forward and ask for a national working group on a separate topic. For example, LMDC LC. Specifically, I think Mahanur, their president, was wanted to create a national working group for blood donation, and at that time, I think Hafsa Fayaz was the president, and or I was the president. I don't remember. Anyway, so the discussion had been going on for a while, and so Hafsa, I think it was Hafsa Fayaz, and Rasan sort of formalized the whole thing. Uh, the only difference is that NWG does not have any specific tasks by the NGA. A task force does. A task force is completely defined by the National General Assembly, that is the LCs that are proposing it, and it has a specific set of timeline. NWG is sort of an informal body which is regulated by the executive board, but it has their own set of rules. It has their own set of criteria. It has their own set of work cut out for them. There is no time limit. They can go on independently to work on a specific topic and things like that. Oh yeah, Sabbath the president. Yes.
Okay, guys. So I think
I
Adi
think
can
that's
take over now. Manaki, do you have anything else to add?
yep. No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manaki.
Okay, thank you so much, Manaki Bhai, for explaining beautifully the bylaw situation and the regionalization situation. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Here you can see, as on the screen, there is example of the IFMSA Pakistan policy proposal. It was adopted last year NGA, and it was promoted by QAMC LC and CMHLC. As you can see, there is a policy statement, and the policy document. Policy statement consists of introduction. So this policy is on an anti-tobacco law. So this is the introduction. And Farhad, can you please move on to next page? Yes, and here you can see his call to action. Now IFMSA IFMSA Pakistan will now call to the government of Pakistan and the different organizations and stuff like that, and they are suggesting, like, IFMSA calls on the government to implement certain things on the public and to the different communities on which this is going to be implemented. Okay, go on, Farhad, go on. Okay, here is the policy position paper. You can see here is the background. They have given the background, and now observe the situation. They have used the external references here. They have given the background why this policy is necessary, why in Pakistan this position stands. As one of the person asked the question is, you can discuss any topic issue in IFMSA Pakistan. So I am going to answer to that question. Yes, you can discuss any topic into the policy which is issue at hand. For example, currently there is coronavirus issue. You can present a policy on the coronavirus issue, like what are the situation healthcare workers are facing, and you can present that policy, what specifications and what different products should government provide to that, and what necessities should be necessary for the patients and for the stuff like that. So, and Farhad, down, go on, please. Okay, here is the example. They have beautifully explained while using the external references and the Pakistani law too. So they have explained beautifully, and in discussion they have explained why they have written these things in background. Discussion is like the references about that. This is a national example of the national policy, and I would like to answer some questions here that was commented in the comment section. There was a one question: can policy be cancelled before 3 years? No, policy cannot be cancelled. I don't think so. It can be cancelled before 3 years because it has been adopted by the plenary sessions. And regarding the question of Abra, or I don't know who was the person asking, but the question was, if after 3 years you have to go through the whole process again. No, you have to contact to the VPE of the concerning organization, and they'll guide you what to do next. If that needs to be amended according to the new bylaws, or you have to just go through the general secretariat and get it adopted again by the plenary. That's all from my side. Thank you so much. Farhad, over to you.
Okay, guys. So We've done policy making and we've done task force. So a lot of you are asking the difference between working groups and task force. That was going to come up later on. So that's now. Nakiba, you can add anything right now before we start the next topic.
Okay, I think Himayal was mentioning that if you want to make a policy statement, you need to contact the liaison officer. So I'm just gonna say it outright that IFMC Pakistan communication, I think regulations state that you have to first talk to your own national officer. And to be frank with you, the international officers won't directly respond to you without first going through your national officers as well. So if you or your members want to work on a policy statement, the best thing would be to first approach your VPE, your VPCB, where your EB in general, or the relevant standing committee officer. I think Farhad can comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, it is recommended that obviously you can email the liaison officers internationally, but again, it's very less likely they will respond to you. But through the national officer or the national EB, maybe they know them or they have the official emails. Through that, they are more likely to respond. Other than that, I'm going to explain the working groups now. So, yep. Regarding the working groups, so we internationally the working groups are called small working groups, and nationally we call them the national working groups. So the works of this body are always coordinated by a national officer, which can be elected by the General Assembly, and the adoption and the reports can be presented on the National General Assembly. They do not have any regulations. They just want to work on a specific thing. They can go ahead and work on that thing. Whereas a task force is mandated by the National General Assembly, and they have to report to the National General Assembly. So this is very important. So once you have mandated a task force, whatever task they do, they will report back to the National General Assembly. So this is very important. So you know what work has been done and whatever recommendations they give. A national working group is sort of like different LCs come together and they work together. You can implement national working groups. It is very recommended. So it would help you to work in coordination with other LCs, because I feel like a lot of presidents say there's not enough coordination between LCs. So national working groups are one way of coordination between LCs. Other than that, we have, yes, regarding the task force, that number of participants, structure, objectives are decided by the proposal which is submitted by the formations, and the presidents can vote, amend, or reject their proposal based on their views or liking. The reports can be discussed of the national working group can be discussed on national an NG as well, but they cannot. A national working group does not have to be approved on NGA. Exactly. Their reports can be discussed if someone asks for it. Okay, so regarding present sessions, so this is just a very simple thing on present sessions. Present sessions are the sessions during our NGA where all the presidents come together and they discuss different things. Um, okay, there's a lot of confusion. I'll get to that in a second. So just present sessions are all the presidents, all the leaders and coordinators of different colleges. They come together and they can discuss reports of national working group, task force policies, and upcoming changes in the bylaw proposals. Uh, the thing is, a lot of the time in IFMSA Pakistan, we spend our present sessions discussing the candidates, which is not ideal. It is something that you should be discussing within your own LC so you can vote on. Let's hope that this NGA, we do not have to discuss candidates. Everybody comes in with an opinion on them and have read them, and we can discuss on the new bylaw proposals, on the new task force changes or implementation of task force or any national working group or any other reports that are made. Uh, Up next is we're going to talk about bylaw changes. As you can see, we have had a constitution and there have not been much bylaw changes in them. I will send you the bylaw document to everyone in there. Bylaw changes can be made, and how they're made is basically you give a proposal to, it can be submitted by the team of officials, by the executive board, by the supervisory council, or 2 permanent LCs. Why is this important? Is because sometimes LCs feel that these bylaws do not work, or things have changed, or you want things to work in a better way, or you want to change the wordings. They can submit bylaw changes. And bylaws are something that we hold accountable to. The whole working of the national cabinet of the organization is through bylaws. Sometimes our bylaws do hinder our work. So by making changes in bylaws, we can ensure our sustainability or improve the work of the national cabinet or the local councils. So this bylaw change is always submitted 2 hours before the plenary to the plenary chair and the executive board in a motion. What happens then is it is voted upon, and it must get 2/3 of the voting, and it the change must be approved by the CCC committee, and if they can recommend that this change can happen or not. So this is very important. Not every bylaw change can be made, because sometimes anyone can come up with a change that's ridiculous. So these changes must be sound, must make sense, and then they could be voted upon. So that's bylaw changes. And once the change is made, there cannot be any further amendments. And they are voted by a ballot. So we must have a 2/3 majority. Okay, so that's about it. And any bylaw changes, any proposal submitted, any task force proposal submitted must happen to the bylaw 9.4, which is basically all the documents must be submitted electronically to the general secretary, and it must indicate the exact time of submission and must have the signature of the LC president that's submitting it. It can have one LC or more than one LCs and must be signed by them. So this is basically regarding all the bylaw changes and how they work. So regarding the questions, anybody, we can ask the questions now. So, and anyone can recommend a NWG. They must submit it to the EB. They can approve it, and then this NWG can come into work. So an EB, they must approve it to the EB, and the EB says, okay, this is a good NWG, and we can work on it. Again, I'll say small working groups are internationally. We do not have small working groups in Pakistan. We call them national working groups, because we do not have a huge number of LCs. There's only about like 20 to 21 LCs, somewhere around 20 LCs, including candidate LCs. So if a working group has about 3 to 4 LCs, it is consisting quite a bit of the number. So it's called a national working group. Any other questions? You guys can ask all the questions now. Yes, 2 permanent LCs have to propose it. It's basically, the stamp is basically a sign. Alam, you can speak now.
Hey guys, Assalamu alaikum. It's nice to hear all of you people, beautiful people. So I have a question. Look, so I'm curious right now. I do a proposal, right? I do my my task force and my etc. Right? I'm not going into specifics because I have to read it to understand it better myself, right? Read it 2 or 3 times. But let's say I propose a policy, right? I propose a policy, and this policy goes through IFMSA, etc. And now I'm just like emailing people, and I'm like, can you guys like listen to me? Will anyone really listen to us? We're from Pakistan. We're realists. Okay, we know how people are. We know how crappy people are. So like, I'm just gonna write this policy. I'm gonna bust my ass doing all this work, right? And then at the end of the day, it's just gonna be an email that they put into their spam folder. You know what I'm saying? Now, what if like there was a more let's say you could say a better way to go about it, in which I have this policy, let's say the anti-tobacco policy, right? I have the anti-tobacco policy, right? Now I look at the stakeholders, we look at the stakeholders in each situation, and then we make for each of these, let's say we have 5 stakeholders, for each of the 5 stakeholders, then we have a specific plan to implement it with them. And you have to meet with the person physically at the end of the day. No one's gonna care if you just email them realistically, okay, right? So like, what I'm saying is, I'm gonna bust my ass for all this work, and I really won't get, let's say, quote, result, unquote, right? I won't get a result. So what is, I don't know, I'm just kind of frustrated about that in that sense. So did I say anything that made, let me know. Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, so basically you're saying that the policy document, once it's submitted, we must have a more, let's say, effective way of making it work. Is that it? We must be more effective on it and we must go out. Well, that's the thing. Once a policy is made, the policy commission, that's why it's very important. They must be very active, and the support person from the EB must be very active, and they must go out. Again, we are a student organization. Whatever work we do, we have to come together and enforce it. So once a policy is submitted and all the LCs agree, not just, let's just say, not just the EB goes out and asks for change, maybe the LCs can go out on themselves and also say, okay, this is the policy we believe in as well, and we make a change. These are the things that should be discussed in present sessions on, okay, this policy has been submitted, how do we make it work before we vote on it? Is it workable or not? Again, having a policy sometimes is not just making it work. Sometimes the policy is something you believe in. As we say, okay, maybe we have a policy on gender equality. We may not go out and do much, but we can ensure this gender equality inside our own NMO, inside our own leadership. So we have a policy document to depend on that. Okay, this is our policy. Anybody can depend on. If someone has a bias or is going against someone, it can be sort of a statement as well, because it does have it is a statement of an organization. So let's say if you're a general member and you feel like you're being biased against, and there's a policy that says this should not happen, you can refer to the policy and go out that say, okay, this is happening, we have a policy against it, and you're doing that, and people will have to listen to you. So policies can work that way as well. We may not be able to change everyone around us, but through policies, we can also change our organization for a better tomorrow. Yes, you can.
Hello again, Farhad. Just want to tell you have a very cute voice. Like like, you know, yeah, I miss you. Right. Anyways, so thing, right. So let's say, what about coordinated colleges? Like, look, you know what? I've been like working hard to get my freaking NOC signed. I have like 42, 43 members, but my principal is like a brick wall. And I'm like, I don't have any hand grenades to throw at him to get through it. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm not trying to do safadish, whatever they call it, right? Calling in people to make him meet with me. He knows me, right? All that stuff. So I've been doing I've been trying to work for my NOC. If I can't get it, right? And I'm using different tactics. I'm going to get it, inshallah, God willing, right? I'll get that done. But like, I'm in a coordinated college, but like, I have a good understanding of the bylaws, etc. and stuff. And I think I could propose a great thingy, right? All this stuff we're talking about. Now, I kind of feel like muted here. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a boot on my you know, my throat, and I won't be able to, you know, propose something because I'm not part of an LC or something. Life is complicated, and I think coordinated colleges should have a bit more leeway in such circumstances, because I think you know, we're pretty competent as well. And that is it. Peace.
Okay, so regarding that, so I've just explained how to make bylaw changes. And this is something we can do together. You can ask the permanent LCs like, okay, this is the issue we're having, and they can present that bylaw change during the NGA that two LCs or two coordinated colleges or two coordinators can come together and propose a policy document. So what you can do is you can propose a policy, and then it may not be accepted, but you can, along with it, propose a bylaw amendment on that bylaw that says to local councils. And then once that bylaw is accepted, we can present the policy document on the next day of the NGA, and then it could be voted on. You get me? Okay, so regarding the timelines, the thing is, there's a call will be opened before the NGA, and then it would ask for any proposals, any task force, any policy documents, and it would be sent to all the LC presidents and all the coordinators, and then they can read it, and then they can apply for any changes. Yes, you can submit any, you can ask one of the national officers or the national EB that, oh, I want to propose a task force. and they can work with you against it. Uh, Alam, you can go ahead. This will be your last question though.
Oh, that's unfair. Just kidding. Totally not. Dang it, what was I thinking about? I lost my train of thought for a second. Oh shit, I wrote it down. Wait. Okay, so what I'm saying is IFMC International has, what is it, like a 67 or 63 page bylaw, right? And IFMC Pakistan has a 93 or 97 page bylaw. Now, I love rules and everything, and I love protocols, and I love it. But there's like 70, like let's say 15 gates. There's 15 gates to get to my house, okay? And I have to find every single key, and I have to locate it, and I have to tell that key, hey key, I need to pick you up, and I need to put you in this lock, and I need to twist you this specific way to get to where I want to go. With every single 15 gates, I have to do this, right? I think this is unnecessary. It's long-winded. It's frustrating. I think maybe what I'm proposing is we should do like a small working group or task force, et cetera, whatever we need to do, right? Or whatever protocols we have to follow to simplify our bylaws a little bit. Why are there 50 words when it can be concise and succinct in 4 words? You know what I'm saying? And let's make it like 2 or 3 gates as opposed to 15 or 20 gates, because it's simply frustrating and tiring to have to read through 97 pages of bylaws and have to look at all this not all of it, okay, some of it's nonsense, but you get what I'm saying. I'm done.
Okay, so I would say this is something that I do agree with you on. And the reason of having this webinar and having everyone here is so everyone knows what the bylaws are, what the different ways of making decisions are. So now we're all thinking about it, that okay, these are the bylaws, these are the issues we have. So what you can do is anyone, you have my email, I will send it out to you. And any issues you have, you can email it to me and we can discuss together. Yes, Munakib, you can add anything you want.
As someone who wrote most of the bylaws, yes, the main difference why ours are like 97 pages and internationals are what 63 pages is because our font size is bigger, man. Our font size is bigger. That's the only reason. In fact, our bylaws are practically shorter than the ones that are in international. Uh,
Alam, I can tell you, you have not read the international
and
bylaws. They're very confusing.
and no, they're not. I like during my years of active IFMSing, I practically knew each and every line of those bylaws and our bylaws because I sort of created a mess as well in the plenary when they did, like, I think a chair did not remember a bylaw and they approved a motion, and then I mentioned the bylaw, and then they sort of had to withdraw that motion and re-propose it, and then there was deadline issues. So anyways, it created a whole mess, and everyone was sort of judging me to remember for remembering the bylaws. But uh, uh, but the thing is that bylaws are maybe 30-40% streamlining of the procedure and 60% uh, legal shit, right? So
Guys, this is
they
gonna
need to be
record
in
and go
that
on YouTube, so
language.
be careful.
Okay, sorry, just leave that out. Okay, so in order to have uh, like this detailed language and everything defined and going on to like repeating multiple sentences, um, is because that everything needs to be clear if something does go on a sort of legal track, right? So you can't have anything because while concision is actually concising anything actually makes things easier to understand, but it also leaves a lot of things to interpretation as well, which uh, shouldn't happen in bylaws. And that is one of the problems in international bylaws as well. that a lot of things are still open to interpretation, and you will see that each year at General Assembly there are amendments and then there are additions, like multiple bylaws get added each year to IFMSA bylaws, which make it like thicker, and they are growing just because everyone needs some things to be specific. And while okay, if again as Farhad said, if you find something confusing, you can always email the ED to have them explain it to you. And sometimes maybe some procedures. Um, okay, so sometimes maybe such procedures may seem a bit tedious, but those are just to because bylaws mostly come from our experiences as an NMO, uh, dating back to maybe 7, 8 years, and what problems that we have uh, faced because of absence of bylaws, and then we had to put those in bylaws in that specific way so that in future we might not face these problems. So some things might seem useless to you, but I assure you when you remove them, um, you will face problems. And again, you can discuss it with the EB whenever you want, that why does this specific thing needs to be in there. And Zahra, I'm sorry, I'm taking too much of her time, so I'll just cut it short. Uh, that is why, because we have only one NGA and international has two GAs, and that is why in our bylaws, EB has the power to formulate the task force. If you want a task force to be formulated other than the NGA, you can always go ahead and ask the EB to formulate that task force for you. And if they don't agree with your logic, you can have a discussion with the president and then maybe talk to them. And if they still don't agree with you, just email Subco that they are being a brat about it. Thank you very much. Uh, in emergency, again, Rabia, our bylaws have plenty of places where they sort of uh, they sort of like give authority to the EB in any situation where they need to intervene and there needs to be special circumstances. There are plenty of like leeway sort of things in the bylaws which allow EB to intervene whenever they want.
Okay, so as Nakib said, the EB does have the authority, but what we're trying to do with this EB was with the webinars, first of all, just to give a general information to all the presidents and local council EB members. And then maybe if everyone feels like, okay, some things we need to work together, we can put all that together, have plenary, see what the general consensus is. Then the EB can propose any task force or any working groups if you guys want that. The reason of having this webinar is so every you guys can be actively involved in the decision making to reach out to the EB. We are here to help you out. We are here to improve the NMO in any way we can, but we cannot do it alone. We would need the presidents, we would need the local council EBs to reach out to us on any topics you feel that we need to work on as an organization. Go ahead, Alam.
I felt that sigh and it kind of hurt. Okay, anyways, I'm just gonna say. So I think we should do a task force on policy implementation, efficacy, and maximizing impact. That's it. And how would we do that? Perhaps I'll email you or message you. Thank you.
I think for that, you guys should talk to one of our team officials. There's Abra Zahid. She's already proposing a policy document on maternal health and safe abortion, I think. I've worked under her for that policy. She's very good on it. And she can guide anyone on the whole policy making process. She's very good at the whole thing.
Thank
Yes, but I gave access to safe abortion. That's it. Scora people would know.
Okay, sorry, Farhad. One thing that I need to mention, Alam, is that you are taking policy as sort of like action statement, uh, which it is not. Uh, there are plenty of things going on, right? You can have a strategy to sort of fight tobacco. I'm just taking an example to fight like tobacco pandemic, if you're throwing that word around anyways. Um, and then we can have that strategy can lead to some actions that need to be done, whatever, yada yada yada. But policy is sort of, it's called policy statement for a reason, because it is uh, just a statement. It sort of testifies your stance on that specific topic as an organization. And when someone accesses your organization, they get to see that this is your stance on this specific topic. Policy does not necessarily lead to action. Uh, Policy just represents your stance. Mm, yeah. Uh, so policy just like declares your stance on it, and then you can actually refer to it wherever you go as an organization. But the actions, they come from your projects, your strategies, your national officers, your national working strategies, and stuff like that, which can have policy statements as part of them. But keep in mind that policy statement is just a statement.
Okay, so I think that's it
Thank
with
you
the
very much.
webinar. A couple of questions that were asked by the coordinator colleges. Some of you wanted to know about how to become permanent LCs. We will be having another webinar on it, maybe the end of this week or the next week. So you can join on that. A couple of you asked about the whole COVID pandemic situations. Regarding that, we are having an online campaign on it. Which we are doing is, according to the WHO and the CDC, we're converting their documents, translating into Urdu and posting that. You guys can use that. If you guys want to work on something more concrete, you can see the Alhambra LC is working on donating PPEs to doctors at Jinnah Hospital. So you can contact them. Anything else you guys want to work, do reach out to the SCOF or the SCOMI national officers. They're working on the COVID campaign, and we are working with our neighbor NMO MSI India on working against the whole corona thing by interlinking our borders, going beyond the borders. So we are trying to work on different things. We can work together. Another thing, due to the quarantine, what I would recommend is having more webinars. Since everyone's home, you guys can all attend this. We can all come together and discuss different issues. uh, to the presidents, we will be having a webinar for the VPCBs, the Vice President for Capacity Buildings of your LCs. Do tell them to attend it because it will be very important on the capacity building of your LC. I will be heading it. My team will be there. We'll try to help out the capacity building process of your local council as much as we can. I think that's all the questions we have now. Any other questions you have, you can email it to me or send it to the WhatsApp group. I will email you the slides of this webinar. The webinar has been recorded. It will go on the YouTube. So if anyone wants to refer to anything, they can go back to it. If those that are not here, they can watch it. And I guess that's sort of it. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Good luck with it. I hope we can all make informed decisions and make the NMO better.